The NBA has basically turned into an offensive laboratory. Teams have more film, more analytics, and more defensive schemes than ever before. Coaches switch everything. Tracking cameras follow every movement on the court. Entire departments exist just to figure out how to slow down superstar players. And yet, there's one guy the league still hasn't solved: Nikola Jokic. At 31 years old, the Denver Nuggets superstar isn't just dominating the NBA, he's breaking the way the game is supposed to work. Calling him just a center doesn't even make sense anymore. The guy runs the offense, controls the pace, and makes decisions like a point guard while being 7 feet tall. Honestly, he's more like a basketball glitch, the type that messes up the numbers and breaks the models people use to explain the game. And somehow, the stats just keep getting more ridiculous. But what makes Jokic's dominance even crazier is the situation around him. Less than a year ago, everything in Denver was chaos. For the 2025 playoffs, Nuggets ownership shocked the entire NBA by firing head coach Michael Malone and general manager Calvin Booth out of nowhere. The message was basically, this team isn't performing how we want, shake everything up. David Adelman stepped in as the new head coach and immediately had to start reworking both the roster and the system. But here's the wild part: none of it slowed Jokic down. If anything, he might actually be having one of the best seasons of his career, better than some of the years he already won MVP. The only thing that might stop him is the NBA's 65-game rule designed to fight load management. Because when you really break down the data, the efficiency, the constant double teams, and the historical records he keeps wiping out, it all leads to the same conclusion. The NBA still has no idea how to stop Nikola Jokic, and right now, it doesn't look like that's changing anytime soon. Normally in basketball, the more responsibility a player has on offense, the less efficient they become. That's just how it works. If you're taking more shots and running the offense on almost every possession, eventually your numbers drop closer to league average. That's the rule. Nikola Jokic basically looked at that rule and said, nah. Instead of becoming less efficient when his workload increases, he somehow becomes more efficient. It's like the normal math of basketball just doesn't apply to this dude, and the numbers prove it. This season, 2025 to 26, Jokic is averaging about 28.8 points, 12.5 rebounds, and just over 10 assists per game in roughly 35 minutes. Nobody else in the league is averaging a triple-double while scoring nearly 30 a night like that. But the really crazy part is the efficiency. His true shooting percentage is sitting around 68%, which is absurd considering he's taking nearly 18 shots per game while running the entire offense. For a player carrying that kind of offensive responsibility, those numbers are borderline ridiculous. Most stars see their efficiency dip under that workload. Jokic, he's sitting around the 96th percentile in efficiency across the league. And the advanced stats? Yeah, those are completely insane too. His player efficiency rating is hovering around 33.6, higher than a lot of peak seasons from some of the greatest players ever. Earlier this year, his box plus minus was spiking to numbers like 19 or 20, which is basically video game territory. It cooled off a little later in the season, but it's still sitting around 14, which is elite. And all of that just leads back to the same question. If the NBA has more data, more film, and more defensive strategies than ever before, how is Nikola Jokic still doing this? To put that in perspective, Luka Doncic scores more points per game, but with much lower efficiency. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has incredible scoring numbers too, but he doesn't come close to Jokic's playmaking. Jokic isn't just scoring efficiently, he's creating offense for everyone else at the same time. Luka needs the ball a lot, like a lot. Everything runs through him and he controls the whole rhythm of the offense. Jokic is the opposite. He barely even holds the ball compared to other stars. Tracking data actually has him way down the list in how long players dominate the ball, but somehow he's still one of the best playmakers in the entire league. The dude just catches the ball and instantly makes the right read. Quick passes, touch passes, little post feeds, swing passes, boom, boom, boom. Defense barely has time to set up. The ball don't stick with him, it just moves. He's basically like the hub of the offense, directing traffic. His passing numbers are crazy too. Top percentile stuff with an assist percentage over 40%. And then there's the free throws. Jokic is hitting about 83% from the line on roughly 8 attempts a game, which is wild for a big man. Smaller defenders can't guard him in the post without fouling, and when he gets to the line, it's basically automatic points. That's another reason his efficiency efficiency is through the roof. Most big guys in history weren't that reliable from the stripe, but Jokic is. Now, when you look at where he actually shoots from on the floor, that's when it gets even crazier. Most centers live right under the basket. Drop steps, hook shots, putbacks, that kind of stuff. Some of the newer bigs float out to the three-point line, but sometimes that just bails the defense out. Jokic, dude scores everywhere. Paint, mid-range, threes, floaters, weird little one-leg fadeaways, all of it. Efficient from basically every spot on the floor. There's no obvious weakness in his offense. No zone where defenses can say, all right, let him shoot from there. And that's exactly why teams still can't figure him out. All right, so if you look at the shot tracking numbers this season, Jokic is finishing about 74.7% of his shots right at the rim, which makes sense when you remember the dude is like 284 pounds just bullying people under the basket. But the wild part of his scoring isn't even the easy stuff at the rim. It's what he's doing everywhere else. Jokic is hitting 57.5% on shots in the paint that aren't right at the rim and around 52.4% from mid-range. Now here's why that's crazy. Those areas of the floor, the little floater zone and mid-range, are usually the worst shots in basketball. Analytics people hate those shots. League average for mid-range is only like 41%, so most teams try to avoid them. But Jokic, he's out there cooking from those spots like it's a layup. Floaters, weird push shots, that one-legged fadeaway he does, all that stuff is money for him. Basically, he's turning the shots defenses want you to take into efficient offense. So when teams run a normal pick and roll defense, like drop coverage where the big man stays back to protect the rim, Jokic just stops and drops that little push shot, and he's hitting it over 50% of the time, which means the defense is basically giving up points on purpose because that's what their system tells them to do. It's like the math of defense just falls apart against him, and that's not even the end of it. On top of all that inside stuff, Jokic has been stretching the floor from three-point range too. This season, he's shooting roughly 39 to 40% from deep on almost 5 attempts a game, which is the most he's ever taken. So now centers gotta guard him 25 feet from the basket. If a big man like Rudy Gobert or Victor Wembanyama steps up to stop the three, Jokic just puts them on his hip and slowly backs them down to the rim. If they back up to protect the paint, he just launches the three over them. Either way, you lose. The biggest difference between Jokic and other superstars isn't scoring, it's decision-making speed. Most players read the defense after the play develops. Jokic reads the defense before it even happens. He already knows where the help defender is, which teammate will cut, where the open shooter will be. So by the time defenders react, the ball is already gone. And that's why even the smartest defensive systems in the league still struggle to slow him down. Bottom line, Nikola Jokic isn't just dominating the NBA, he's breaking the way teams are supposed to defend basketball. And until someone figures out a way to solve that equation, the league is still playing catch up. So if single coverage doesn't work, the obvious solution is to double team him. But that actually creates another problem. When teams send a second defender at Jokic, Denver averages about 1.21 points per possession on those plays. That's one of the worst outcomes a defense can have in the entire league. The reason is simple. Jokic sees the entire floor before the defense even rotates. Because of his height and vision, he can pass right over the top of the double team, and he almost never panics. Instead of picking up his dribble, he keeps it alive, watches the weak side defense shift, and then fires a cross-court pass directly into a shooter's hands. At that point, the defense is scrambling, and once a defense starts scrambling against Denver, the possession is basically over. This is what makes Jokic so unique. Most superstars are incredible scorers, but when defenses load up on them, the offense slows down. With Jokic, the opposite happens. The more attention he gets, the more dangerous the offense becomes. Even when he's in isolation, one tiny defensive mistake can instantly turn into a layup, a dunk, or a wide open corner three, because he's already reading the next rotation before it happens. The Joker is not a traditional rim protector. He doesn't have the vertical explosion of someone like Rudy Gobert or Victor Wembanyama. And it's true that quick guards sometimes try to attack him in pick and roll situations, but the advanced numbers tell a different story. Statistically, Jokic grades as a very strong defender, largely because of things that don't always stand out immediately. Elite defensive rebounding, quick hands for steals, and extremely smart positioning. In fact, he averages over 12 rebounds per game, with the majority coming on the defensive end, which ends possessions and prevents second chance points. He's also surprisingly disruptive with his hands, generating over 1 steal per game by anticipating passes and stripping the ball from driving guards. So while he might not look like a classic shot blocking center, he still contributes heavily to team defense in other ways. The bottom line, at the end of the day, the reason the NBA still hasn't solved Nikola Jokic comes down to one thing. He forces defenses into impossible choices. Guard him inside and he shoots threes. Guard him outside and he bullies you in the post. Double team him and someone else gets a wide open shot. Leave him in single coverage and he'll score anyway. There really isn't a correct answer. And that's why, even in an era where defenses are smarter than ever, Nikola Jokic still looks completely unsolvable. When you look at the numbers Jokic is putting up, nearly 29 points, 12 rebounds, and 10 assists per game on elite efficiency, the conversation naturally shifts from today's stars to the greatest centers ever. Players like Shaquille O'Neal, Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Hakeem Olajuwon. Each of them dominated in their own way. Shaq overwhelmed teams with raw strength. Wilt put up statistical seasons that almost feel fictional today. Kareem had the unstoppable skyhook, and Hakeem has some of the best footwork the sport has ever seen. But Jokic brings something those players never really had: elite playmaking. He doesn't just score efficiently, he runs the entire offense. While traditional centers punish double teams with scoring, Jokic punishes them by turning them into open shots for everyone else. That's why modern analytics often rank him as one of the most impactful offensive players the league has ever seen. The real problem for the rest of the NBA. So as the playoffs approach, the question every team has to answer is simple. How do you stop Nikola Jokic? Single coverage doesn't work. Double teams don't work. Switching doesn't work. And now, with Denver experimenting with bigger lineups and more offensive options, the problem might actually be getting worse. Because Jokic isn't just a great player, he's the ultimate offensive system. A 7-foot playmaker who can score at every level, read every defense, and control the geometry of the entire court. Until someone figures out how to defend all of that at once, the NBA is still stuck trying to solve the same impossible equation. Like, subscribe, share, and maybe even hype the video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments and whether you agree that the Joker is a problem. Thanks for watching.